Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and football fans. Yes, you are a different species. If you can hear my voice or see my face, you know it's time once again for the worst 120 minutes or so in all of sports. That's right. It is time for the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. I'm Mike, and I am joined, as always, by my faithful partner in all things podcasting, producer Stead. How goes it, sir?
Going pretty good. I have enjoyed the weekend of sports, even with some games missing. It was all right. I still had plenty to look at and enjoy. And yes, finally a weekend where I think now I love the fall because my summer work is over and I can finally kind of take a deep breath. So
yes.
Things are going well.
Good. I didn't realize how focused we were on the UK, the British leagues, whatever you want to call it, until we had a weekend when there wasn't any. You know, when COVID popped up, there really wasn't any soccer, so we were just itching for anything. But I'm kind of used to having it around again, and it wasn't this weekend. So it was an interesting weekend. It wasn't that there was just no EPL or the lower leagues. There wasn't any Scotland. There wasn't really any stuff coming out of the Isles.
Yeah, but you know what? I've noticed that when there isn't EPL, I tend to leave the Isles. I do. Yeah, I wasn't too miffed by that. I was just sort of like, okay, well, I put on ESPN and said, well, I still have 2 or 3 other leagues I can look at. So I was okay.
I was good.
Yeah.
Watched the Bundesliga.
Yeah, I watched Bundesliga.
I watched Bundesliga. I got a chance to catch up on a crazy weekend in college football this weekend.
I did too. Actually, yeah, it's funny. I always say the worst thing for college football for a lot of people was the Premier League. That was because college football dominated Saturdays, at least Premier League's primarily in the morning. So you can kind of but I would get my sports fill before they would even start their college games. But I actually watched a couple of college games this weekend, definitely.
And there were some crazy ones.
Absolutely.
Alabama and Texas, Nebraska losing to Georgia State, Marshall beating
Notre Dame.
And
the Giant Killers of App State strike again.
That's what I was going to say.
But they don't always win, but they're always close. And it seems like year in and year out, the top 25 seems to take that school lightly. Now, App State was good because I'm a fellow Carolina college student. I went to East Carolina, and App State was good back then when I was in school. They were a strong team. And I remember watching the Michigan game, and that's not even surprising anymore. My buddy's a big Miami fan. He went to the University of Miami, and he was like, yeah, they almost beat us last year. It's like, I don't know why teams keep scheduling them because they will knock you off easily. They may not always win, but they will give you you'll get squeaky bum time playing App State. I'll tell you that.
I remember for a couple of years, Oklahoma and Ohio State each had Army come up, and both times Army came close to winning them. And I haven't really seen Army on a big a Power 5 conference's schedule since. I'm starting to wonder if we will ever see App State on. I like it. Remember back when Chaminade beat Virginia? And nobody ever played Chaminade ever again. It's kind of like, or back when John Chaney had Temple.
Yeah.
And every few years, somebody would get it in their mind that it was a good idea to go into Philly and try and play Temple.
Yep.
And then they'd get beat and nobody would ever play Temple again. And then, 5-7 years later, somebody would get it in their mind, oh, we can get this. This will be a good road win for us. Temple's a strong school, and they go into Philly and they get beat, and then nobody would schedule them again. I think after they beat Michigan, we went through about a 5-7, almost a decade where nobody wanted to play App State. And now you've seen what they've done the last couple of years. They got their big scalp again, and guess what? nobody's going to play App State again.
Yeah. And, they're in the Bowl Championship Series now. So that they're out of the FCS. But, I mean, they've had a strong program. Everybody who's from North Carolina is like, I ain't playing them. Not playing them if I don't have to. I'm not playing them. Nope.
I'm not playing them if I don't have to, let alone giving them money to come to my pitch.
Right.
And
I'm going to fly you down here to embarrass me. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yep.
Like all the Marshall tweets and Georgia State tweets afterwards. Hey, thanks for the $1 million and the W.
Yeah, absolutely. And Marshall's another team that's been good for off and on for a while. I mean, they beat anybody.
They it's been a while since, the days of like Chad Henne and Randy Moss.
Yeah.
But that's
Chad Pennington. Yeah.
Chad Pennington. I'm sorry, Chad Pennington. I knew it was Chad.
It was one of Chad's. It was a Chad. Yeah.
I wonder if that Chad was hanging. So
yeah.
Really bad Florida joke, G.
Hey, I'm not part of that state anymore.
That's
so
true.
let's go, man. Let's rail into him. So yeah, I'm all good.
Yeah. But there was plenty of just lots and lots of craziness all across the board. And then of course the NFL season started on Sunday. Stead, congratulations. Your team of many names picked up their first W as the Commanders. G, it looked like the Bears were playing in a mud soup.
It looked like they were playing in Miami. Let's talk about Florida, but yeah, it looked like it was just a downpour. But hey, even the Saints won, so far 2-0.
2-0. The Eagles got a win. So we got that. Yeah. So all in all, like I said, I missed the Premier League because I wish it had been played, but it was one of those weird weekends without it where you were able to say, oh, there are other soccer leagues.
Agree.
And
100%.
other sports around in the fall that weren't watching, and we can watch them.
Yeah, I was telling Elizabeth, I couldn't tell you the last time I watched actually ESPN Game Day and actually watched like the hours and hours of just I couldn't remember, but it was nice little breather. But yeah, I still miss my soccer. I ain't gonna lie.
Rob is in the chat.
Yeah, Rob popped in a little late because I was like, Rob, I chumped in. I was like, I watched Bundesliga this weekend. I was excited to. Yeah.
Rob, we led with the Bundesliga.
Yeah.
So, of course, by now, Coach G has joined us, looking very resplendent in his vintage Roma jersey.
Yes, sir. It kind of goes with the little shtick that I'm doing today. I'm gonna kind of keep it tame. I don't have my my beach scene or my my Leaning Tower of Pisa behind me or stuff like that. So I don't have Mario played on the TV. So it's all good. So I'll just keep it like this. So.
No, always a favorite of mine. Have a soft spot for Roma. Always have. As I like to tell the story, after my first night in Rome, we went to this fantastic Italian restaurant by the airport, Fiumicino, called La Vecchia Alfara. And I mean, it was some of the best Italian food that I ever had. Seafood. You could just taste the salt water. You knew this shrimp and this tuna that he was cooking.
And I've never been over there, but what I've heard is phenomenal. Like any small mom and pop shop, you name it, it doesn't even compare to any of the Italian food here. So I'm looking forward to that one time.
I ate in a basement somewhere in Rome, and it was, I'm still drunk from the rum cake. So it was delicious. It was wonderful.
One day.
Yeah.
Even better than that, it's a Monday evening, and everything in Rome shuts down early. So we were the only two people in the restaurant, and we get done eating. The chef is leaning over the kitchen counter looking to see when we're getting done each course so that he can fire the next one. And there's the chef who speaks no English and the waiter who speaks very limited English. So they're rolling up the sidewalks by the time we get done. We are the last people there going to serve, and we are standing around there. They had sent a van to take us there, and apparently they had told the van to come back and get us in about 2 hours. The problem was it took about 75 minutes for us to eat, and we're standing around looking like, where did we go? We just got here a couple of hours ago. Can't get a cell phone signal. Don't speak Italian to get a cab. There's no cabs. There's no Uber. There's no nothing. And the waiter walks out and he sees us standing there and he says, where do you go? And I said, well, we go back to the Hilton at the Rome airport, and points to the chef and says, he take you. Now the chef has this little Honda hatchback, typical European car. I'm 6'3". My wife is 6 foot. My wife folds herself in half and gets in the back of this Honda hatchback. And I get in the front. I got my foot up on the dash because in Italy, traffic lights are only a suggestion.
Yep.
And
if you want to walk in the middle of the street, hey, that's your own issue. Hey, forget about it, Yeah.
Yeah, and speed limits are just there for decoration. So he's driving, he's got the Euro techno music going, the LED lights all around the dashboard. I mean, this car could not be more Italian if it wanted to. And we're on, and he's driving. Roma, see, bellissimo, Roma, bellissimo.
Nice.
Totti, bellissimo, Totti, bellissimo. Totti, the king.
Beautiful.
So I think it made a fast friend over just knowing 2 words, Roma and Totti.
That's all you need. Yeah, that's all you need sometimes.
That is my experience with the fervor that is Italian soccer. So in light, of the fact that we didn't have a Premier League, we felt like it might be a good time for us to catch up a little bit on Serie A. Now, one of the biggest stories kind of developing over the last couple of years has been the reemergence of the Milan teams and the decline of Juventus, especially after let's call it the Cristiano Ronaldo experiment, which
successful.
I mean, it got him to
got him the money, got him the recognition, brought Juve to that next level. Just couldn't finish it off, in the Champions League. But winning the Serie A year after year after year after year, and bringing all the records back and stuff like that. Yeah, I would say it's an experiment. It was very successful. That's what they wanted. Now looking at my notes and everything, I'm just thinking, maybe they might want him back right now because I'm counting major big names. And eventually we'll tell you guys, but like 1, 2, 3, like 6 major injuries right now in Juve, and maybe Ronaldo is quite on the radar right now to come back right now. And I know the window is closed and stuff like that, but look in the future, this team is really in disarray. But yeah, the Milans are kind of coming back from you guys want to say death a couple of, about 20 years ago with the going down to Serie B and stuff like that. So it's good to see this kind of resurgence, or this kind of say renaissance. But even Torino is looking good this year. And Atalanta, I think, is getting lucky. But yeah, it's the Milans are back. They look very powerful. I have them top 3 finishing for this year, even though right now I think they're 3 and 6. 3rd place, 6th place. But yeah, I think they're solid. It just matters of just being healthy. Right now, both those teams are not. So looking at their schedules and looking at their records right now, they're both 4-1-1 or 4-2. Like, they're both winning, and they're not really full strength right now. So just matters of time. It just sucks that it's just early on in the year right now. You can predict so much, and there's so much that could happen right now. But traditionally over the years, we're getting stronger and stronger. And
yeah, I'm actually enjoying what's going on in Serie A. I mean, look, you guys know I'm no fan of a team that's super dominant in any league, and to see the old lady win the number of championships they won pre-Ronaldo, and then have that continue when he was there. Clearly, that wasn't his focus. Was the league? It was definitely Champions League. But to look at a squad, to look at a league, and you can count 4 or 5 teams that have a pretty decent shot at winning. And you can count a significant number of teams that have a decent shot at top 4. That does make for better viewing. I think this is very good for. It's good to get the Milan teams back. Yes, because Atalanta's been strong for the last 5 years. They've been pretty strong. They've been qualified for Champions League.
I think they're going to tail.
They're probably going to tail off, right?
Yeah,
but
the typical Italian stuff.
Yeah, but you're looking at outside of the big 3 of Milan, Inter, and Juve. And then you have, your Roma, Lazio, and Napoli as well. But then you have Atalanta, who's still kind of hanging around there. And as you said, Torino's playing pretty well. So you actually have a legitimate race in Serie A, which you have not had.
And I know you're looking at the table right now, but look around 9th place, 10th place. There is now about to be a huge division where you have points are already beginning to spread. Right. You're about to have a halfway break already in week 5. True. So it's very kind of hard to tell right now, but the way it looks like there's going to be the haves and the have-nots, and that top 8, top 7, decent teams that can do a lot of damage even next year in Europe. But yeah, your top 2, your top 3, they're solid teams. It just matters if they can have their players the entire season, if they can be healthy. But I really like what Roma is doing. They won the Euro League last year to rise
Conference
up.
League, yeah.
The Conference League and stuff like that. So they're on the rise up. Now they got De Boya, the Argentinian forward, who is okay. He's been kind of hurt the last couple of years, even on Juve, but it looks like he's doing well right now. He's got a couple of goals and assists. So it looks like I hate this guy. I really hate this guy, but it looks like Jose Mourinho is doing something special down there in Roma. He's just kind of changing their culture around right now. So again, they're winning the league, the champions, the Conference League last year. And right now they're sitting pretty well. They're sitting in 5th place. They're looking really well. They're hitting on all cylinders already. So Tammy Abraham is doing well. He's kicking butt. Just seems like he's thriving right now under Mourinho, where he really wasn't doing so well. Maybe it was just too much at Chelsea. But right now, a lot of these kind of mid to high level players in the EPL going to now Serie A, and they're having great success. We saw that even with Lukaku. So,
well, Chris Smalling's still he's been there for a while, and he's still playing well.
He's got a goal this year.
I think the best thing about Mourinho as well is because of his connections with England. You're seeing English players go to that league, which you didn't see for quite a while. So I think that's very positive to see. Because English players don't often leave the UK. They don't leave. They just stay there. And so it's good to see them venture out and to see how other leagues play. I think it's just better for their overall game. I mean, I don't think you need to go do what Dele Alli did and go all the way to Turkey, but at least that Italy is a viable option.
Yeah, it's also a viable option for getting some confidence back. We've talked about the fact that the pace of the play in Serie A is a little bit slower. The game may not be as physical as it might be in the Premier League. So guys like Tammy Abraham, like Lukaku, are able to find an easier niche and be successful. And as long as, sometimes, well, I think
and they're right at that level right now, is that they just need to be kind of just bigger, stronger, whatever, to fit in the EPL, but they're not there. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, they're at that mid-level kind of player where they can do great success in other leagues, but not the EPL. And I see Rob down there, but you think about Timo Werner. He was phenomenal in Bundesliga. Then he goes over and kind of puts a little crapshoot over in Chelsea. Certain players are just really good for certain leagues, and maybe some of these older, some mid-level EPL players are going over to Roma, and like you said, that connection between England and Italy with Jose Mourinho made just a great success. Like you said, Chris Smalling's still down there, been playing for the last 4 years down there
for a while, yeah,
and is doing well. So it's so
and making no grumblings about returning either. He's like, I'm cool. Yeah, I like it.
And that's one reason why I have Roma on right now, because they're this upcoming team right now. They're I would say of all the teams out there, they're the quickest turnaround. You talk about the AC Milans and both the Milans. There's just slow turnaround over a decade where Roma was kind of at that 6-7 level, then Mourinho's going to bring it to the next level. So they're already kind of waiting right there for something or someone to bring it to the next level. So I really like what Roma's doing right now. They only have one good loss against Lazio. They beat AC Milan. So a lot of their goals are spread throughout their offense. Where you look at a lot of these teams, they're going to have one player who has 4 goals or 5 goals, or you take that one player out, you take down all the offense. Where Roma spreads their offense out. So, like I said, really good offense. I kind of like what they're doing right now. Mourinho has a good recipe going.
Gee, it has been ages since a Southern Italian league won the Scudetto. Right now, Napoli sit at the top of the table. A lot of us might were probably a little bit surprised by what we saw from Napoli in the Champions League when they turned over Liverpool. They were quick. They were attacking. This harkens back to, the late or the early aughts version of Napoli with, Sanchez and Edinson Cavani and those guys leading the line, and that team that was close could finish second, but just never could get over that Juve hump. They have, again, a strong, athletic, quick moving forward line. We saw them get in behind the Liverpool defense, and I think they really a team that finished fifth, and then third in successive seasons has steadily moved up the table, kind of announced their presence. Meanwhile, we talked about Roma, their renaissance under Jose Mourinho, making it to winning the Europa Conference League last year, as well as the decline of Juventus. We're looking at right now Milan AC in third, with Milan Inter in sixth. Mm-hmm. Three of the top 8 teams are Southern Italian teams. The last one that you could throw in there would be Lazio down in 7th. Is this the year that a Southern Italian team can finally break the Northern Italian stranglehold on the silverware in Italy and pick something up?
Yeah, and like you said, 1 through 7, if you look at their records, they're all pretty darn close. 4-2-0, 4-1-1, 3-2-1. Now here's the issue, and like I said a little bit earlier, I gotta look at my notes, but Juve's got a lot of the injuries right now. You have Juan Cuadraro out, you have Locatelli out, you have Di Maria out, you have Rabiot out, you have Chiesa out, you have Pogba out. You have all these big name stars are out, and here is my thing. How long is it going to take for those guys to come back and click? Is it too late? Because all these teams are kind of healthy and they're going to be rising up, and Juve is going to be kind of struggling. All of a sudden, is it just too much of a gap for them to kind of catch up? I'm going to say Juve, not your year, guys. I hate to say it. So that's going to throw them out the window. But yes, it's going to be a Southern Italian team. It's going to be just those teams that kind of waited around for the decline of Juve, and they've been kind of stacking up slowly, kind of building up their teams kind of for this right now. And like you said, it's kind of anyone's game right now, 1 through 7. So all the records, they're pretty identical. The players are pretty solid all throughout. And like I said, there's a couple of teams out there that they kind of spread out the offense, where some of these other teams, like Juve right now, is kind of with their offense. Napoli is kind of, again, with their offense. So you can start seeing those slide. The other teams are going to rise up. I just think it might be too much for Juve to even kind of come back and to even come close to even a top 5 spot. So to be honest, I really do think it's going to be a Milan team. I think Inter Milan's going to win with 83 points, with Roma with 82. I think AC is going to win with in third place with 80. I think it's going to be really close, but I even throw Torino in there in top 7. I think they're really good right now. I just don't think I don't think another Italian team. I just think it's a Southern Italian team that have been waiting for this moment right now, and they're going to pounce on it. I'm going to throw maybe a spaghetti against the wall and see who it falls. But it really, the top 3 is going to be a coin flip to see. But I really do think Inter right now has all the players, all the pieces ready just to win. So I'm going for Milan. Inter.
Jay, we've all had experience watching Atalanta play in the Champions League and the Europa League in the last couple of years. This is another one, not historically a team that we think of, but man, have they built what we can only say that it seems like a very sustainable project there.
Midfield's solid.
The midfield, it's always kind of started with the midfield. They have a strong African presence on the team. It really is an interesting thing. This is not one of the story clubs. This is not one of the money clubs, but they seem to be there or thereabouts. They're sitting in second right now. Are they just punching above their weight to start and they'll slide back down the table? Or do they really have the staying power to stick and stay throughout the season, especially as it gets longer and the games get more congested?
I think that's going to be extraordinarily difficult. I really do. I mean, they're still in Europe. They're still playing in Europe. And it's I mean, I liken it to I mean, I'll just pick my team. I liken it to Arsenal. This is a team that is going to fight, and they're going to continue to punch. Are they going to stay in second? I seriously doubt that. But I think if they can finish even fifth, that's a huge success because they've had a good run of form of being able to compete in Europe. And let's see how far they go. I'm pretty sure they're not Champions League this year. I think they're Europa League, but I could be mistaken. But hey, when you come from the top level of European competition for a number of seasons, I think at least 2 or 3, and then you're playing in Europa League, I don't want to say it's easier, but when you're not a team that continually competes in Champions League and you're competing in Europa League, you have to feel pretty good about your ability to stay in a tournament for a really long time. So ask me that again in January, but I don't really see it. Yeah, but yes. Very good. You start
attracting players. If you can compete, you just need that extra kind of puzzle. But if you're always in this extra tournament to get a player, to get your name out there with a team that blah, 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 it's a solid kind of pick. In the last couple of years, they've been actually doing some damage in these tournaments. They're not going to the semifinals, but some of the players that they do win, some of the teams that they play against the group play, even the first knockout round, they're holding on strong and stuff like that. They just don't have enough to kind of get over. But again, that's just the owners spending enough, more money than they need to right now. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're just satisfied staying 4th and 5th in Serie A just to make some more money and just kind of just build. But it doesn't seem like they kind of go after, winning, go all in for the Serie A. It looks like they really stock up their I just want to say employees, but their team really for these tournaments to make more money and have that legacy throughout Europe to draw more players. So I really don't see Atlanta being even top 5. I have them 6, but it's a close. I think the top 6, you're looking at maybe a 12-point difference between all of them. It's going to be a tighter race than what you've seen before. It just seems more the teams are more locked in. So again, each team needs that extra piece just to win or extra piece to do something. So
but Atlanta actually finished 8th last year, so they're not in Europe, which I actually think would probably be good for them. I think it'd be good for the squad.
So the team that finished above them and is in Europe is a team that I guess because of their location, but they do have a lot of history in Fiorentina that just hasn't been able to get it right. Now, big time this year. They're not doing well this year. They've picked up 1 win from their first 6 league matches, and they just can't score. I mean, they've had
not like last year.
Yeah, they just cannot get the ball in the net. They haven't scored multiple goals at all. Everything's either been 1-0, 1-1. Their losses have all been 2-1. But they haven't exactly had the easiest start to the season. When you look at the matches that they've had to play, I mean, they've had Udinese, they've had Juventus, and I believe they started the season. Yeah, they started the season with Napoli in a 0-0 draw. They go to.
And actually, you kind of beat me to it, but like if you look at Napoli's schedule, that's why they're in first place right now. They haven't really played anyone except for Liverpool, and they, blah blah blah. But for them to be in first place, you kind of have to see who they played. Yes, Fiorentina has played some good games. Look at Udinese. Who have they played really? So like you got to look at again. It's early in the season right now, and it's so hard to see.
Yeah, you really can't look at the table until 10 games are in.
Yeah, and that's where right now it's all fun and games. You're like, I predict blah blah blah. But Fiorentina had a tough schedule. Now I do expect them to come back, but it's so hard the first couple of games, though.
So they will get an easier go of it. As far as games, let's start with this. As far as any teams that we haven't mentioned that we should be on the lookout for, or players that you want to talk about that we haven't mentioned.
No, actually, the biggest thing is just a lot of these, like even for Juve, a lot of these bigger names that I've kind of talked about a little bit before is just having them come back healthy. There's no really big names that are kind of stepping out there right now. I would love to see more of the younger bucks. When I look at some of these schedules, I see like a bunch of 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds now are kind of like or have such a huge influx in the league. I can see one of those kind of boys, I hate to say it, but they're boys, kind of just rise up and out of nowhere. So you have all the big names, like you got Lukaku, you have Pogba over there, you have Henry Mkhitaryan over there. Just want to throw a little Roma, kind of a Man U, a little love and stuff like that. But you have Immobile. We don't really talk about Immobile so much when he scores left and right. So you have the same character cast. You really have the same characters. Nothing really, in my eyes, kind of step out. Yeah, you don't have Ronaldo, so that Juve is kind of gone. Dybala's over in Roma, so we don't know really what he can do. So some of these names are just still kind of there. So I'm waiting for the next kind of the young bucks to kind of come up, the young boys to come up to see who's gonna be the next superstar. But right now, I, in my eyes, my perspective, I really don't have any big boys coming out there right now.
If as I'm looking at the schedule, man, Sunday looks interesting. Roma is hosting Atalanta in the noon match, the lunchtime match here. And then if you so choose, because your team is not playing, your football team isn't playing on Sunday, and you choose to watch Serie A, 2:45 in the afternoon. There is a good one. We just talked about Napoli. They go to the San Siro, which is on its last legs, to play AC Milan. Give us the pick of your picks for those two games. How do you see those two going?
Well, hopefully I'll be at the Saints game covering that for Uncle Leo. He's trying to get me going over there and stuff like that. So I will maybe possibly not be watching any Serie A games. So kind of doing my little second gig over here. So I would like to see Inter Milan kind of beat Udinese, even though it's at Udinese. I'm going to throw some couple of things out there. I want Roma to beat Atalanta, even though Roma is favored a little bit. And the strange thing is the AC Milan and Napoli, it's an even line. It's kind of hard to bet, but again, I think both of Milans it's going to be those years, both of them going racing for first place again, like they did last year. So I hope AC Milan wins. I hope Roma wins. I hope Inter Milan also wins. So I hope Juve kind of loses. I don't know if you guys see who they play this weekend. It's
Monza.
Yeah, so I'm kind of hoping like some of these smaller teams kind of like, I got you now, finally. So I'm kind of hoping that the Monza wins at home.
It is away. It's away
I mean,
Juve.
Monza, much better known for Formula One and Ferrari than they are for anything football related.
Yeah, and that's why I have them as my number 20th getting relegated this year. So yeah. Right now they're already at -11 in goals, so I don't really see them getting any better. So they'll be kind of Juve.
They steal a 0-0 draw.
Yeah, I mean, if it was car race, I may pick Monza, but in a Serie A league, I don't know. But it is a good story seeing them up there. As we wrap up this discussion on Serie A, outside of the Juve team when they were dominant and going to Champions League finals, and perhaps because of the dominance of Juve over the course of that decade, we really haven't seen Serie A be as competitive internationally. And that has kind of coincided with a unfortunate downturn for the Italian men's national team as well. Yes, I know that there was the Euro 2021 victory that kind of was a bit of a surprise, but that is sandwiched in between two failures to qualify for the.
But I would actually say that would be the bigger surprise is not qualifying for the second one. The first one, the team was rebuilding, and you saw, Man City real quickly change that culture around to win the Euros in 2020, especially with the older center backs. Then you had the new young bloods. But it's very surprising they didn't win it, didn't qualify for the World Cup this year. I think the next World Cup they will. I think it would be more surprised right now. But I like what they're doing. But yeah, there's
how much does the Italian national team, because so many of their players play domestically, I think they're one of a few teams where almost all of their national team players play entirely within Serie A. Back when they were winning in 2006, that was seen as a good thing, but you had a strong Juve team. You had AC Milan in the midst of winning a couple of Champions Leagues under Carlo Ancelotti. How much does Italy need? The Italian national team need a strong Serie A, and how much does Serie A need a strong national team for them to be successful? Because amongst Europe's top leagues, they have fallen behind and they're in danger of being overtaken even by the likes of Portugal.
Agree. I think they dropped even below Bundesliga. I think Bundesliga really marketed themselves very well and really promoted certain, I won't say teams, but focused on real teams to promote them. Serie A, I would say after the the Milan's controversy with this dropping down, Italy has never really been the same. England, I think, took the advantage of it and just took and just stole a bunch of their great players, just zapped them out. You see Spain still kind of rising up. France is kind of just stuttering, but really, I think they lost their spot against Bundesliga. I just think that it really hurt them, and it's kind of so hard to kind of get back there. Like you said, it's so hard for outsiders to come over to England. I'm sorry, to Italy, but you have these players, like I said, like Tammy Abraham, who's right at that level that will have great success over there. But you need better players in that league to bring the Italian players up another level. So I think it's kind of, I would say, watered down, but I think the focus right now is staying in England, staying at that top competition as much as you can in England for your national team. That's where the best players are going to be at right now in the world, better than Spain, better than Germany. So it's just one of those things that or these teams need to start dumping money like the Man Cities, the Man U's, the Arsenals, just spend money just to get the best players. So once they do that, they're going to be number 4. It's going to be kind of struggling for a while.
It's never going to happen in Italy.
There's going to be eyes looking at the corruption out there anyways. It's going to be so hard for them to even sign any big players. Pogba going back there, I was very surprised about that, to be honest, but whatever.
Well, that was the level that he was at after the farce that was Manchester United. You see a lot of teams buying from there. But we've learned, unfortunately, the money just isn't there anymore.
I mean, but and also you still see half-empty stadiums in Italy a little more often than you'd like. I mean, it's just not there. I think what they could probably hope for is possibly like maybe the country of Kuwait purchasing Roma, or purchasing Lazio or something like that. Like they're owned by Kuwait, and now you have it, and then you're stuck with a PSG type situation. But at least you have Juve as the team that's always going to be able to afford players.
Juve is always going to be able to, but you've also gotten to the point where Roma needs to get out of the Olympic Stadium.
Yeah, absolutely.
In addition to being dog old. Yes, Rome is a very large metropolitan area. Rome, the stadium, the Stadio Olimpico in Rome is just not near anything. The San Siro has been falling apart since it was renovated for the Italian World Cup. Unfortunately, that was like 1992. So it's time you see that one going. The television contracts just aren't there anymore. I mean, they're
on Paramount, and they're second fiddle to Champions League and Europa League.
Yeah, they're underselling themselves.
Yeah,
they're underselling themselves. There is a connection with the revenue sharing agreement, I believe, in between Serie A and Serie B, which I think is also hampering a little bit of the revenue that they're able to make. They're not able. There's always been talk about Serie A doing a Premier League and breaking away from the Italian structure. You have some teams that were I'm trying to think, like I think Palermo or one of the teams down in Sicily, Cagliari it might have been, that has just gone out of business a couple of times because they just can't they can't.
It sucks. There's no one coming to the games and watching and no one buying the tickets and
these teams
when the TV money's not there. I mean, that's
the biggest thing we see even here in America.
A combination of TV money and just financial mismanagement has really rendered that down the rungs. All right, buddy. Well, we want to thank you for coming on and joining us and talking a little bit of Serie A. We will definitely get you back on here in the near future to keep tabs on it, talk a little bit more, especially since, even this weekend, we don't have a full slate of Premier League games, so we can definitely find time to fit that in. But great as always. Thank you for coming on, G, and joining us.
Always a pleasure, guys.
Talking a little bit about that. We're going to welcome in our good friend Los, who's going to come on and talk to us about Los and El Gato. I'm sure that if Los is there, El Gato is nearby.
She can't stay away from me.
So, Los, bringing you on again. No English football this week, which gives us plenty of opportunities to talk about Serie A or La Liga
La
and
Liga.
the defending European champions,
Yes, they are.
Real Madrid, who
That
right
is
now
correct.
are sitting at the top of the Serie A table, I believe. I haven't checked it. As I quickly turn my attention to check the La Liga table to make sure that I am correct. Yes, I thought so. Real Madrid, top of the league, doing what Real Madrid.
Not just top of the league, but perfect through 5.
Mm-hmm.
So they got all the points they could possibly get. They've got them all.
And perfect on the season. They've won all of their points. They beat Celtic in a typical Real Madrid type game. Might not have been pretty to start with, but at the end, you see the talent that is Rodrigo and Vinicius Jr. Shine through, and they are able to get the victory. A lot was made last year about Carlo Ancelotti's kind of unwillingness, lack of desire to rotate the squad to bring through some of these younger players that he's got, but they're so settled, they're so good, they're so in tune with each other and their manager. It's like, why mess with a good thing? And you are seeing them be able, as a result of the veterans there, allow some of this young talent that they've got to develop almost pressure free.
Well, yeah. I mean, the best goal of the weekend was from Uruguayan Fede Valverde. He got the ball probably about a few yards out in front of his own penalty area and dribbled down 80 yards, put a curling left-footed shot into the upper 90 before the half to equalize. And then, of course, that was all she wrote. It's once Real Madrid gets the first bite, then it's like, okay, it's the shark in the water smelling the blood and going right at it. So then they ended up winning 4-1. But it's been a pretty good start. Being perfect is always good. They're not the only story in La Liga. You have Lewandowski coming in as a sub for Barcelona and scoring a late goal and an assist in like 15-20 minutes time. It's just amazing. And now Robert Lewandowski actually leads the league with 6 goals. He's second place is Iago Aspas from Celta with 5, and you got 2 tied at 4. But Lewandowski's making his mark, and he just got there, and he didn't even play a full match and made his mark.
The Lewandowski situation brings us on to, and I'm hoping possibly that our newest guy,
Eves,
the bartender, can join us and talk.
Bartender, yes,
well, it can join us and talk a little bit about the situation at Barca, which is his primary club. But Barca is going with this idea that we are going to mortgage the future on the present. We're going to kick our financial woes as far down the line as we humanly possibly can in hopes of getting as much revenue in right now to kind of potentially offset the losses. We're talking about the sale of 25% of their broadcast, I believe 25% of merchandising revenue over the next 10 years. Almost 50% of their broadcast revenue, the sale of part of Barca Studios. I mean, they just brought in a whole lot of cash, but what they gave up in the long term, the new deal that they signed with Spotify to sponsor both the men's and women's team, but also to put the name on the stadium. So it's no longer just a Camp Nou, it's the Spotify Camp Nou for sponsorship reasons.
Yeah. It's, money talks, that's what drives everything. If you want to follow or find out why any decision is made. If you follow the money, you get that. That's the one thing I learned from watching the movie All the President's Men. And as a historian, I know G could have actually appreciated that comment. He'll probably appreciate it later when he watches the podcast. But it's always follow the money. See, where the money is, that's where the decision was made. And that's exactly what's happening here. And they even they had Antoine Griezmann on their squad, I believe. And they went ahead and they gave him up, or he's some sort of contract where if he plays more than 50% of the time for his current club, Barca gets a payout. And he's not playing but 30 minutes a match because he comes in at the 60th, 65th minute, 61st minute, and he plays a half hour, and that's it.
And Atleti has basically said that, it was a 2-year loan deal. There was a contract clause that said if you played over a certain percentage, I believe 50 or 60% of the minutes, it triggered an automatic buy. Atleti has basically said, like, they're not interested in this, so they're not going to play him because they don't want to have to buy the player. While still a quality player, they haven't seen him be able to unseat Joao Felix as their primary attacker, and they're comfortable with the situation and they're happy. So the revelation this week was that Barcelona were seeking, were filing a lawsuit against Atleti over this exact thing, which, to be honest, I don't know if they have any standing to actually sue. I assume that it could go through the European Court and possibly the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Is it unfair? Yeah. Is it unethical? Maybe a little bit, but is it illegal, or is there any liability? Can Barca sit there and tell, if it's not in the contract that says he has to play when healthy, like a lot of loan deals where we see between, say, a Premier League team and a lower league team, where there's a playtime clause put in there that often nullifies the loans. So if Arsenal's loaning somebody to a championship side, they may insert a clause that says we expect this player to play this many minutes. If not, we're going to take them back. But I've never seen that with a loan deal like this. I don't know what line. Yeah,
I don't think there's anything like that. I think it's just one of those things that Barca is going to have to eat it. They're expecting a loan payment coming because of playing time, and it's not going to happen. And that's just how it is. And there's no requirement or compulsory sort of notion that Atletico has to go ahead and play him. And that's not, they don't have to. They could have decided, it'd be silly not to play him. They do play him, at least a half hour, but they don't really need him. I guess, Atletico Madrid, they won 4-1. So, they're winning and they're only bringing them on, half hour at most. So, but it's interesting what's happening in La Liga. I will say that if you had to ask for without checking the table, the top four, you have Real Madrid and Barcelona. Now, who's 3 and 4?
See, it's not fair because I'm looking at the table, so I already know the answer.
Exactly, you already know the answer, but it's not your usual suspects. Mm-hmm. You got Real Betis at 3, and Osasuna, who won today at Almeria 1-0. And so you got those are your top 4 going into this weekend.
Well, okay, so Betis has been they are a Europa League team, and they are managed by Manuel Pellegrini. So this is not it's another team that has been thereabouts, competing for European places in La Liga for a couple of years. They've got a really solid manager with a great pedigree, who has probably found a level where he can find success again and rebuild. Maybe he moves on, maybe he doesn't. Osasuna, I couldn't tell you what that was about. I mean,
It's early. It's 5 games. Okay, it's 5 games. But let me tell you what, they're winning. They've won 4. So I mean, they're up there.
Their only loss is actually to Real Betis.
Yeah, well, there you go. And when you look at the upcoming match, though, you can't overlook the Sunday night football of Atletico Madrid versus Real Madrid in the derby coming up Sunday night. That should be very interesting to watch this weekend.
So Atleti finds themselves actually a little bit further down the standings. They've won 3, drawn 1, and lost 1. But that is only good enough right now for 7th place. This was a team last year that we thought had a chance to capitalize more so on some early falters by Real Madrid and Barcelona's struggles financially and with players to kind of catapult themselves up the league. They weren't really able to do that. We said 3 years ago that this was a team in 2020, 2021 that we expected to almost run away with the league, how much they were scoring and how well they were playing to start, and they were barely able to hold off Real Madrid then. The Diego Simeone experience continues. Los, I gotta say, he was at one point in time considered one of the hottest coaches in the world. He was one of the most sought after names, with being able to rebuild Atleti, get them back to not only to Europe, but to Champions League finals, to win multiple leagues, to kind of break up that Barcelona Real hierarchy.
And they kind of sort of upset the apple cart for a while.
They did, but I guess we're past the point now that I can see him leaving. I would actually be very surprised if he leaves or they get rid of him unless the bottom falls out. We have seen kind of them try to rebuild. They have brought in João Felix, who's kind of, I guess, the biggest marquee signing that they've had recently, because a lot of the guys who are on those teams still have connections to the early Diego Simeone teams that were going to the Champions League final and winning. This is a team that's getting a little bit older. They're relying very heavily on João Felix and just being able to flat track bully other teams. It works sometimes it doesn't. Right now, I don't expect them to stay in 7th. I mean, they're only 5 points behind Real, with the derby coming up this weekend. Can you see them, though, finishing any better than 3rd and possibly a distant 3rd to Barcelona?
Oh, I think your top 2 are still going to be Real Madrid and Barcelona, and whoever comes 3rd could be Atletico Madrid, could be well, it depends. Maybe Osasuna might be the surprise this year. It's all up in the air. We're only 5 games in, so it's kind of hard to make a prediction. We still got 30 some odd matches left to go. So it's kind of hard to. You just got to take it week by week and game by game, match by match, and just look at each match at its own merits. I got a couple of matches that happened this past weekend I did want to make a note of before I take off here. That Sevilla won their first match. Now that's a team that has been in the Europa League and actually won the Europa tournament a couple years ago, and so they've had success in Europe and such, but they just won their first match out of 5.
Yeah, they're struggling.
They're struggling. Now they were up. You ready for this? They were winning 3-0 before halftime, and then a penalty kick made it 1-3 before when they going into the half, and they finally held on and won to Espanyol 2, Sevilla 3. but but they held on for that. And on top of that, the first goal scorer, former Spurs player Eric Lamela, scored in the first minute. A nice little left-footed flick that got past the keeper, and was, it was a cutesy sort of play. Got the goal, but then he found himself lunging at a player. If you've seen the highlight, it was ugly. He lunged into the Espanyol player and took him out, and got sent off in the 84th minute. And I think my buddy said that the odds for the goal and a send-off by Lamela, I think, were something like 25-1. But he got them both. That's the one thing I wanted to talk about. Sevilla struggling, but they did get a victory on the road this weekend. We'll see what happens with the rest of the season. And for my buddy Coach G, who was just on Getafe, his team that he follows with such heart and such lovingly. Well, they won this weekend. They're still in the relegation zone, but now they're 18th, so they're out of the cellar. But now you got 5 teams that are tied with 4 points, and Getafe is the worst of them at goal differential -8. So.
Well, at least they're having bad of a start of Cadiz, who's having the worst start ever in La Liga.
Yeah,
right?
Cadiz
is having the worst start. They are 0-5 with a -14 goal differential, and they've only given up 14 goals, which means they have yet to score this year. This is the worst start ever for a La Liga team.
But at least they got the Barcelona loss out of the way this weekend. They lost 4-0 to them, and so whatever, they can't go anywhere lower than that, right? Or can you? We'll find out.
I don't know. They have Valladolid on the weekend, so that Valladolid is only in 17th place on 4
It's true,
points.
but they've at least scored a couple of goals. Cadiz can't score a goal.
Yeah. Valladolid had a 1-1 against Girona this weekend, but then a late goal on a direct free kick happened in the 88th minute, and Girona wins 2-1. So snatched a point from them. So a couple points. So
meanwhile, up in 5th place, Villarreal, they kind of let the season go last year, chasing Europa League victory, and Unai Emery was kind of content to hover around almost out of the European places. Didn't quite make it, didn't work out for them. In the process of trying to get into the Champions League and compete in in the Europa League and compete in Europe, they ended up in the Europa Conference League. So they currently are sitting in 5th place right now, and
they lost over the weekend. It gave up their first goal of the season. In fact, that's how stingy they've been on defense. But it took a outstanding cross and an outstanding strike by Rodri Sanchez to go ahead and put Real Betis up 1-0 on Villarreal over the weekend. So it was they're very tough defensively, but they just can't seem to get everything cooking on offense. But if they can, and they keep the defense as they are, watch for them to make a move to be in the top 4.
So give us your pick of the games for that are coming up this weekend.
Well, the one I said earlier, the Madrid. Let me get the schedule up here because I don't have it in front of me. But the Madrid derby with Atletico Madrid and with Real Madrid, that happens Sunday night. That's the Sunday night football that's coming up this weekend. Another one that I see, I was looking at one earlier. Well, Sevilla and Villarreal, that would be a good one to watch because they're both kind of sort of struggling, can't seem to find their form yet. And just out of sentimentality, I would watch Osasuna versus Getafe just to know that Coach G's team probably isn't going to come out on top there. So those are the games that I'm looking at this weekend.
All right, buddy. We'll get you back in the near future to talk some more Serie A.
And maybe it's La Liga.
La Liga, Serie A.
Yeah. And maybe next time Yves can join us.
Yeah, Yves was saying that he felt a little bit under the weather, so he didn't join us, but he's looking forward to coming on.
Well, I hope he feels better, and maybe next time.
Yes, he was just scared of you. This time.
Everybody's scared of me.
All right, thanks a lot, Los.
All right, take care. See you.
Stead, you know what Hatafe needs to do to get out of the doldrums? They need to produce another
I was
video.
gonna say shoot another film.
They need to shoot another film. I think that one's like 10 years old, so maybe they
Yeah.
need to shoot another film, and if they shoot another film, they'll bounce back up the table.
Yeah. Gotta do what you gotta do, son.
Well, that was what they were saying. They couldn't win fans, so they needed to breed them.
Mhm.
So, but the film's now 10 years old, so they
That's
need
true.
they need to do. So
Start it up again.
we are going to go back to the land of enchantment and talk to our good friend Celtic Cam. Cam, how goes it?
Doing well. High spirits right now.
I want to point out the newest addition to my collection behind
I
me.
did notice that beauty right there. That's a solid one.
Yes. After watching his performance in the Old Firm, I felt the need to, get a Cameron Carter Vickers jersey. So
I don't blame you. Absolute legend. Yep.
So since last we talked to you, we've gone through an Old Firm, we've had a round of Europe games, and then we had the weekend get suspended. Celtic ran out. We talked about this last week, but Celtic ran out very, 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 very deserving 4-0 victories. 4-0 victors in the first of the Old Firm derbies for this year. The midweek was not kind to Scottish teams, with the Celtic, Rangers, and Hearts all losing by multiple goals.
Mhm.
I'll be honest, I thought that Celtic put in the best performance of the three of them, and objectively the best performance of the three of them in their match against Real Madrid. It was 0-0 at halftime. There was a point in time early in the second half where Celtic had the opportunity to go up 1-0. I thought they played their game. At the end of the day, the European champions are the European champions for a reason, and they showed it. That group, though, for Celtic has gotten a lot more interesting, especially when we look at what happened in the other game where Shakhtar Donetsk absolutely tore up RB Leipzig. The Champions League. So Celtic will travel this week, Wednesday, to Poland to play the Ukrainian team, Shakhtar Donetsk. Yes, I know my geography fails me, but they cannot play in Ukraine because there's a small matter of an armed conflict going on. So they'll be playing these games in Poland. Neither one of these teams is particularly great on the road, but since it's at a neutral site, I guess that kind of takes the road out of it. Talk about Celtic's week up until the cancellation of the games. We'll start there.
Yeah, no, I mean, you did a really, really good roundup right there. That win against Rangers was absolutely fantastic. That's the kind of play that, I think Angie has been aiming towards. And, as you say, I don't think I could pick a single player out that I would say that was performing poorly against Rangers. I mean, we ran that game absolutely. I think where you're really accurate is in that game against Real Madrid. That first half was absolutely stunning. I thought, as you say, you mentioned the chances from McGregor hitting the woodwork, Maeda kind of screwing up a little bit of a pretty simple goal situation. But we were, playing really, really well that first half. And I think really, going to that second half, we just got tired. We didn't have the same kind of bench as Real Madrid. Having just come off that game against Rangers where we kind of played our hearts out sort of thing. So, I think you're absolutely accurate in that was the best performance from the Scottish teams in Europe that I saw that week. And I think, 3-0, I think is, against the champions of Europe, I think is an okay, no loss is really okay, but, for how they played, I thought that was okay and really well deserving of the team, I think, for what they put out there.
Rumors came out recently that Ange Postecoglou was on a long list to possibly take over for Graham Potter, who departed Brighton for Chelsea. Again, it's still a long list. He does not have any experience in a lot of experience in Britain. He's currently playing in the Champions League, but Brighton are a bigger club insofar as there is more money. Maybe not a bigger stadium and maybe not a larger fan base, but they are a well-run organization. It's a chance to coach a team in the Premier League that's got a little bit of stability behind it and a chance to build something, but he also has a lack of experience generally in European football. We'll start with this. How concerned should Celtic fans be about the possibility of Postecoglou leaving?
Yeah, so I think there's two sides to this. One is that clearly people have taken notice of his coaching ability in Europe, in the UK specifically. You know, they've been able to see what he's done with Celtic. He's not got a loss to his name this season so far. So understandable that he's getting looked at. It's not the first time, as we all know, that we've, had managers being looked at and potentially taken halfway through the season. On the other side of that, I would say though, with a team like Celtic, he has a much better chance of playing in Europe than Brighton, playing these larger competitions. And from what I've seen, that's something that he really wants. He wants to play in these large competitions. And yes, Brighton has more money, more buying ability, but for someone like him, I just don't see him going to a club that size that is not really necessarily going to get into Europe. Whereas he can stay at Celtic, I think be in more control of, buying power, things like that, his backroom staff, and be able to play in Europe. And again, I think that's a big thing for him playing in Europe. So at this point in time, I'm not too worried. Again, I said that with Brendan Rodgers, but he did go to, I think, a slightly bigger club than Brighton, let's be honest. And I just think Brighton is not enough of a temptation for Angie at this point in time.
Now, when you said that he has this desire to play in Europe, play in Europe he did. He made the statement that he was going to go up against Real Madrid at Celtic Park, and he was going to play his game, and largely they did. We talked about the performance. We said that it was a good performance. We said that they put in a good shift. There is a school of thought that you need to be able to play your game before you play somebody else's. But there is a certain naivete about playing that style that works so well in Scotland in a competition like the Champions League, where you have a much higher caliber of players. And we saw that when Celtic pushed forward and in the way that they did, Real Madrid just had the skill, the speed, the players to exploit that. And if Celtic kind of had the opportunity to play those caliber of players, if they had the Rodrigos, if they had the Vini Juniors, if they had the players to play the type of way that he wants to play, there's a likelihood that let's be honest, there's a likelihood that those guys wouldn't be at Celtic. They'd be on Real Madrid at this point.
Right.
Are Celtic fans in any way wanting Ange to change his style of play to find a little bit more success? Or are you content with saying, okay, we're going to do this, even if it means that we're going to get absolutely battered?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, the one thing I think we can all agree on is every league in Europe has their own style of play. Domestically, Scotland's a very aggressive game. Italy is much more footwork based. Spain, I think, is generally more team tactically based, et cetera, et cetera. So this is one of the beautiful things about playing in Europe is seeing these different tactics and managers utilize what they have in their toolbox against each other. I think there is definitely a case to be made from some Celtic. I don't necessarily know if I agree with it yet, but there is a case to be made whether or not the domestic tactics apply to Europe. I think with Real Madrid, that first half, I think if we had the steam and we played the first half like we did the second half, I think it would have been a different result. I don't know if we would have won, maybe a tie, but I think that, for example, shows that I think his tactics can work in Europe. I really do. Playing the reigning champions of Europe, 3-0 loss, very successful first half. I think that speaks volumes. And I think a lot of fans have recognized that. Seeing the games, coming up, I think we'll really get to see how those tactics that he's been utilizing domestically, how they can work on teams like, Shakhtar and Leipzig, things like that. So
going to the Bernabeu, of course, is going to be their toughest road test of this, and pretty much nobody expects them to go into the Bernabeu and get much of anything. But they have, depending on how you look at it, the good fortune or the bad luck of having their next two very important team games on the road. So before the turn, they'll get their major road games out. I think we can both agree that it is extremely important to the Celtic project for them to be in Europe after the new year. I've said this to you for years, how important I think it is for Celtic to be competing in Europe afterwards. And I think we can both agree on that. I think we can also both agree that there is a spot and there is a very defined way forward to continue on in Europe, be it in the round of 16 in the Champions League or in the round the preliminary round of 16 in the Europa League through this. But it's going to come down to these two games, which look a lot different than they did when the draw was made. We're still not sure what to make of Shakhtar Donetsk, playing on a lot of emotion right now, but not much else. And RB Leipzig just look like a shambles. I know that they picked up a win over the weekend, but they got absolutely tonked. How important are these next two road games to Celtic to be, if they can pick up a point from one, a point from both, and how well does that set them up to continue on in Europe if they're able to do that?
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. These next two games, I think, are definitely important. As you mentioned, Celtic doesn't have always the best away records in terms of Europe. Shakhtar also doesn't as well. So I think, and I think this is going to be a big test, the Shakhtar game, to see how we can play in Europe away. Because I think if we follow this first game, I think we're going to be in big trouble. You're absolutely right. We desperately, I'm desperate for us to make it to the round of 16, obviously, but I think in terms of the club continuing to grow, I think it's extremely important. So as you mentioned, Shakhtar not great on the road, running a lot of motions, but not much in terms of the skill area. RB Leipzig, that game I watched over the weekend, because I did watch it just to see how they're playing under, I think they have a new manager at this point in time. They looked good. They looked put together. They looked very different from the Shakhtar game. And I think I told you guys this. It was a little bit worrying. They looked like they were really playing well together, really organized. And I think, I think this new management system that's come into play over there, I think it's going to hugely benefit them, especially because we're playing away. So I think out of the two games, that one's definitely going to be the tougher one against Leipzig. But, then again, as you say, Shakhtar spanked Leipzig the other day. So, no, two very important games. And I think we really need to be careful going into and not forgetting the fact that we don't always play the best on the road.
All right, so going to the other side of Glasgow, Rangers went to the Netherlands and absolutely got tonked for nothing by Ajax. And to be honest, it does not get any easier for them. Their game had to be moved. It's now on Wednesday. They're playing Napoli. We saw what Napoli did to Liverpool in their first match. Sevco has to be scared at this point.
They have to be. I mean, Napoli is, I think in Serie A they're playing fantastically as well. I'm not
they're
sure
they're top of the league in Serie A.
There we go. I mean, they beat Liverpool. They're top of the league in Serie A. Yeah, they are. I mean, from what I've seen from fan bases online, they know this is a big game. But as you mentioned, they're worried. They're worried, having come off that 4-0 loss to Celtic, 4-0 loss to Ajax, and then playing the team that's top of Serie A. It's not looking good for them for this next game for sure, and I think they know that. They're well aware.
The last team in Europe was Hearts. They played one of the teams from Istanbul. I am so bad at pronouncing this name because I don't speak Turkish. I'm not even going to attempt them. That too ended up 4-0. They go to Riga to play RFS. Hopefully an opportunity to get what has at points in time been a bit of a disappointing European campaign for Hearts, back on track. Hopefully they can get the win. So while I got you, let's take a look at the league, which starts this year, which restarts. Aberdeen made a coaching change, and lo and behold, results changed. They are up to third.
Third now, yep.
In the table. How things can change when they need to. What's going on with the turnaround there?
Yeah, no, I think, and this is really interesting. This is something I remember we were talking about the end of last season. They were having some backroom issues, especially in terms of players and management. And we saw, a number of people leave, including, he's escaping my name, the head coach at the time. But one thing that I did mention was that I think if they were to get a new manager in, to kind of steady the ship, a new manager that brought some new blood in, some new life, I think it can make a change. And I really do think it has. It seems like there's not, I haven't heard anything about any backroom issues, anything like that, staffing issues. I mean, Aberdeen last season was the definition of a poorly managed club at that point in time from a management perspective. No one saw eye to eye, play like, Scott Brown was there for a bit. He ended up leaving because he said it was an absolute mess behind closed doors. So from what I've seen, that's all died down at this point in time. So I think we're seeing that a managerial change has been the big, positive element over Aberdeen. So I'm glad to see them back up and playing well. Aberdeen's a good club with a lot of history. So it's good to see them back playing properly.
We have a full slate of games this weekend ahead of the international break. I'm looking Celtic play early Sunday morning. They have St. Mirren. Rangers 10 o'clock on Saturday, hosting Dundee United. What are the pick of the games in the Scottish Premier League for you this weekend?
So, funnily enough, one of the ones I think is going to be really interesting is the Hibs Aberdeen game. That's always a good one. It's not a direct rivalry, but there are two teams that I think play against each other very well. It's very entertaining to watch. I know Hibs is down the table. I think they're sitting at 8th right now with Aberdeen in 3rd. However, it's only a few points that actually separate them, and I think Hibs is going to come flying out of the gate for this one. I think they're going to see this as a great opportunity to move themselves up the table. So I think in terms of the really kind of fast-paced, interesting games, that's going to be my pick. Celtic, St. Mirren, with how St. Mirren's been getting better. They're not quite there, but that would be my second pick. I think that's also going to be a good game. But Hibs, Aberdeen, I think for me is going to be the game to really watch this weekend.
All right. So, Cam, thanks for joining us. We'll get you back next week to talk a little bit more about what happened in Europe for Scotland and to preview the internationals. Thanks a lot for joining us and giving us the report from the land of enchantment, as always.
Anytime, brothers. Have a great night.
You too. It is time to turn to our ever-present Bundesliga correspondent and stat boy, Byron Robb. Rob, how goes it, my good friend?
Just fine and dandy, folks. Just fine and dandy. I'm a little gray. The last 3 Bundesliga weeks, have done me in. But I'm here.
Okay, so start there. 3 games,
yeah,
3 draws, and in this case, it was uh an interesting one. We can talk about the fact that Union Berlin 2 weeks ago played Bayern very tough, and that they frustrated them and perhaps uh, were worthy of the draw. In this case, it was a Bayern team that had a lead until very, very, very late on, and then carelessly gave away a penalty that allowed Stuttgart to level. And there goes lead, three draws on the trot after flying out of the gate, scoring goals for fun. They just can't seem to get the goal offense and the defense together in the Bundesliga. And they find themselves only 2 points back, but sitting third in the table currently, a week before a international break.
You know, the game with Stuttgart, and actually for the last few weeks, has simply been. I think the biggest problem has been Julius Nagelsmann is in a weird spot because not only does he have to play without a traditional number 9, because it was easy. It was easy to put in Robert Lewandowski as your number 9, and then you build everything around that. Okay. But not only that, but the schedule's starting to get a little bit compressed. Now, I'm not going to complain like Jurgen Klopp complained last season, and he'll probably complain again soon with his shitty midfield. But I think Julius Nagelsmann is trying to be cute with the rotation. I think the way you approach these games is you got to have a set starting lineup that changes very, very minimally, but then you have to use your subs wisely and somewhat earlier than you might like. So when they were off and running, they were playing Mane up top with somebody. They were playing like a 4-2-2-2, and that was working pretty well. But now he's getting cute, like Goretzka's back. So now he's starting Goretzka. So he benches Sabitzer. Lucas Hernandez was starting, but now he didn't even play last week. The lead started. McConnell started. And then Serge will start, and Leroy will start, but Leroy will get minutes. Musiala got hurt, and then he's back, but not fully fit yet. He benched Mueller for one game and brought him on late, and that was a Union Berlin game. And I think it's leading to some confusion here. And pretty much Mueller was very outspoken about just kind of the chaos that's going on, and pretty much said, they all have to get their game together. And they need to do it quickly because tomorrow is Robert Lewandowski and Barcelona, who are checked into the Hilton Munich Park Hotel. I saw it on Instagram. They are in Munich, and Robert Lewandowski returns to the Allianz Arena and in fine form. So Julius Nagelsmann needs to figure it out, like what he wants to do with his lineup, because a draw or a loss pretty much does his seats start to get a little hot, the heat turns up a little bit, for a couple of reasons. Bayern had said, we're going to sell Lewandowski, we can do fine without him, we can win titles without him, and he did pretty well replacing him. But then again, now he's coming to town and he's gonna in fine form, and now he scored a couple of goals, and Barcelona take the 3 points from Bayern. Then the tabloids, Bill, the kicker, and all of them will start talking, and it's gonna get very, very noisy in Munich.
One of the reasons why they were willing to get rid of Lewandowski was Nagelsmann saying he did not want to play with a traditional number 9, that he wanted some more positionless football and flexibility amongst his front 3 and 4. It started off well, but you're saying now, because these players don't know their role as they're used to playing, that it's become a bit of a struggle for them?
Yeah, a little bit. And also, as players are not starting consistently enough. Usually, I've always been, a philosophy is, you gotta keep your lineup 90% consistent. I mean, obviously injuries are going to happen, but the players need to be playing with each other more often. I think it's getting a little chaotic with the fixtures. They had the Pokai. This is going to be the second week of the Champions League, and the Champions League is going to run for a while. I mean, you got the international break coming up, so but then most of the players are going to international duty. Even a bench warmer Bruno Sarr is going to international duty. So it's gonna that's gonna help, I think. It also helps that Augsburg's coming this weekend. They're gonna play Augsburg. So that should be an easy 3 points. But we said that about Union, we said that about Stuttgart, so is it really 3 points? I don't I think it's gonna. I'm a little bit unsure. This could get messy, quickly. Like I said, if Bayern drop points to Barcelona and Lewandowski does well, and then they drop points again to Augsburg, this is not. It's going to be really, really bad. It will be unacceptable. Because the standards are high. And that's what we expect as Bayern fans, and also people who watch Bayern, they expect high standards. The question is, you got Nagelsmann for 5 years, so he's only completed one so far. So if they even think about sacking him, it's going to be a really, really expensive sacking.
Well, I don't know if they've gotten to that point yet. The wheels haven't completely fallen off, and we're only about 7 games into the season.
Yeah. I honestly think they need to get to the World Cup. I think once they get to the World Cup, they get the World Cup break, and they get the full month winter break after the World Cup. I think they'll be fine. I think the fixture compression or congestion, will start to lighten a little bit, and then Nagelsmann can finally see what his lineup is and play it more often. But it's tough because you Goretzka being out, he's a starter normally. He's a starter with Joshua Kimmich, but then Sabitzer has done pretty well. But at the same time, Goretzka has earned a chance to play his major minutes because of how well he's done. So it's really weird. And then you got to bench Sabitzer. It's like musical chairs over in the starting lineup at Bayern. And it's leading to issues. In my opinion, it's leading to issues.
So moving elsewhere in the Bundesliga, no sooner did you say it than it happened. Dominic Tedesco was out at Leipzig. Marco Rose comes in. Marco Rose immediately has an impact, and they run out with a much more comprehensive performance, beating Borussia Dortmund this weekend.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I thought Dortmund would put up more of a fight. But we always talk about it. The new manager bounce, right? Marco Rose tweaked some things. They solidified themselves a little bit, and they got 3 points. I think the biggest story, even though of the win, is Christopher Nkunku was a non-factor. He was invincible. And for all your fantasy people who play fantasy Bundesliga, who starred Christopher Nkunku, you were sorely disappointed. He put on a pitiful performance. Zobazai and Timo Werner carried the load here, but Christopher Nkunku is nowhere to be found. I'm assuming this is a small blip. It's Marco Rose's first time, managing his team. So I think Nkunku will be back. But if you could beat teams without Nkunku doing well, then Leipzig are going to be okay. But I think the story too is Dortmund giving up 3 goals. They spent so much money on Niklas Sula and Nico Schlotterbeck, and then they gave up 3 goals, which is kind of unusual. You start to get a little worried, right? You thought Mats Hummels was playing back there, but no, it's not. There's 2 of their biggest signings of this past summer. So that's a little concerning. And poor Marco Reus, Marco Reus, he's 33 years old. He's been through wars. The poor guy, he did nothing this season. This match as well. I just feel for him. I think he's starting to show his age a little bit. He's going to give you a burst here and there. But man, he didn't, last week was not his game at all.
Who knew? Union Berlin at the top of the table. You did well. You knew because you said they may not win the Bundesliga, but you definitely fancied them to remain in Champions League contention. They pick up the win over Köln this weekend, and it's top of the table. Union Berlin.
Yeah, they're just and they're doing it without Jordan Pifa, aka Jordan Sieberchu, aka Jordan. Which is incredible as well. I mean, Cone is going to be interesting for Cone because they're playing European competition. They play in the Europa Conference last week, so they're having to juggle two competitions. This is going to hurt sides like a Cone, and apparently they're hurt sides like Union. So Union are here to stay, and they have an excellent chance to remain top of the table because they play Wolfsburg coming up.
You also talked last week about this match in between Freiburg and Mönchengladbach. It ended up a 1-0 draw yesterday, but that's good enough to see Freiburg remain in second.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a snooze fest. I think Freiburg did well on the defensive side. I think they had chances to get 3 points here, and they're going to come out disappointed. They didn't get 3 points, but I think Gladbach held their own. I think Marcus Thuram did well, and he had some chances, especially late, but just couldn't get it in. So I picked that game, I think, as my match of the week, and it was a good matchup if you don't care for goals, you just care about the intricate details. But Ginter did well, Gunter did well as well, and Jan Sommer once again. Jan Sommer just did amazing. I think he had like 7 saves. It's incredible. And Joe Scally putting in a traditional punch your time card, get your lunch pail shift in defense. Joe Scally is gonna work, gonna earn his union card and gonna earn his trip to Qatar if he keeps it up. This is good stuff for Joe Scally. If you're a fan of Joe Scally, you are a Scally lad. That's who you are. It's amazing stuff. I mean, I'm impressed with his performance. Not shining, it's not beautiful, but it's consistent, and that's what you need. And I think him and Jan Sommer did well this past weekend.
Coach G and Coach Matt continue to do God's work at Schalke. They can't beat many teams above them. In fact, they will tend to get blown out. But when it comes to playing teams that they might be competitive against, they do. They picked up the win over Bochum this weekend, and they sit 12th in the table with 6 points from their opening 6 games. Can they stick and stay this time around in the Bundesliga?
I think they can. They're. I think they're good enough, and their fans are loud enough to will them to victory here. If they have to win these matches, especially at home, if you win against the minnows of the league, and look, I love Bochum, but I'm sorry, you're a contender for going down. If you win these matches, you're going to be mid-table, and you're going to be safe in the Bundesliga. It's when you start to lose to Bochum, especially badly, and your confidence gets shattered. That's when you start to get yourself in trouble. So the Schalke are going to be fine. They're going to get that sweet Bundesliga money. They got the fans back in the stands, and they're going to be one of the giants again in the Bundesliga in a couple of years' time. I think they'll be good here. This was a good performance by them. I'm really impressed with them.
Eintracht Frankfurt's early season European exploits seem to have been a bit of a distraction to them. They just haven't exactly gotten off to the best of starts. They're only 2 points ahead of Hertha on 8 points through 6 games. And when it comes to Europe, they have yet to score a goal, losing 2-0 to Real Madrid in the Super Cup, and then opening up their Champions League campaign last week with a 3-0 loss at home, which was their bailiwick last year in their Europa League Championship campaign to Sporting Lisbon. And to be honest, watching that game, they just didn't really look that great. Are we dealing with some post-European Championship hangover? What's going on with Eintracht?
I'm lost. It's almost like that match against Bayern just, threw them out of whack for a bit. I thought Mario Götze was gonna like really do great things here. I thought he was gonna really like it became like a shift for them. Like Eintracht Frankfurt said, we won the Europa League and we're gonna get some talent on a little bit on the bargain end. And they have nothing to show for it. I mean, they got Stuttgart coming up. And as we saw, that's no picnic, either. So their woes can continue. I mean, they got the Champions League again this coming week, and then they're gonna have problems, with the rotation, keeping players fresh. They could easily go down. I mean, look, out of the last 5 games, they won 2. I mean, it's great. They drew 2. And it's fine. I mean, the problem is that there's some teams that traditionally are not there in Europa spots. Well, Europe spot, I mean, like a Union and a Freiburg, who are hogging it up a little bit. Even in Hoffenheim, for example, are up there. So Frankfurt are gonna have to, win these games. They're gonna have to beat the Stuttgarts here of the league to do well, but they just been, I think, once again, the problem is that once you got to play your big lineups in Champions League, you can't put in second rate players on Champions League, because you're doing a disservice to the club and to the fans, and then that affects your league performances. It's almost like if you go from your Europa to Champions League, you need to like add like 5 quality pieces, just so you have enough of a buffer to kind of do well in both leagues. I think that's where a lot of teams get in trouble. And Frankfurt is just, the latest victim to it.
So before we turn our attention and we talk a little bit about the MLS, I wanted to get your take on the weekend slate of fixtures. Is there anything that stands out to you as a must watch?
Okay, so the River Derby is back for all you Schalke and Dortmund fans. It's great that the Derby's back. It should be fun. It should be a fun watch. It's a must watch. It's one of the great derbies in Europe. So please tune into that. Schalke's coming off a win. Dortmund's coming off a loss. I expect Dortmund to win, but rivalries and derbies are very different, right? It's something about these things that the lesser team just ups their game. So it could easily be a draw. So that's one you got to watch. The Bremen Leverkusen game should be interesting, because I think Bremen can sneak a win here against Leverkusen. Leverkusen is 17th in the table, and it might be the last match for their manager Gerardo Seoane, the Austrian. They have to win. Leverkusen has to win. If they don't, they're at home too. They gotta win at the Bay Arena, because this is it. Honestly, they have spent too much money. They're exempt from 50+1 to not be top half of the table. To be in the relegation spots is inexcusable for our Leverkusen. So that could be interesting. And Bremen has shown that they can win some crazy matches. See the game against Dortmund. So that's another must watch. But I think my match of the week is going to be Gladbach Leipzig. Once again, Gladbach make the match of the week for me. I think Gladbach always put on a good performance. Leverkusen have a lot of weapons. Gladbach don't have as many. But what kind of things will Marco Rosa do to the Leipzig team to have them ready? And also, Marco Rosa is coming back to play against his former club, 2 clubs ago, mind you. So he played Dortmund, his previous club, and now he's played Gladbach, his club from 2 clubs ago. So that's a fun little watch there. So those are the match of the week. Another one to keep an eye on, just from the corner of your eye, it's going to be Union and Wolfsburg. If I think Union have an excellent shot to win. But even though Wolfsburg won their last match, I think Union Berlin can remain top of the table for another week with a good win here. So for all you East Berliners who listen to this show, be happy Union Berlin might stay on top just a little bit longer.
All right, so we're going to turn our attention from the Bundesliga and keep this conversation going and talk about MLS. We are now into the home stretch, the final straight. It's the final countdown.
Yeah, I'm excited, Mike. Aren't you?
I am. And to be honest, this has really been a interesting end to the season. Let's start out in the Western Conference. Before a couple of months ago, it was a question of can anybody catch LAFC? Now it's going to be a question, and then they got the likes of Giorgio Chiellini and Gareth Bale. And to be honest, in my humble opinion, I don't think that experiment has worked. They've lost 4 or 5. The latest being another red card game where they go down to 10 men in the 13th minute and lose to FC Dallas. The question then becomes, can LAFC hang on?
LAFC is one of those teams where I don't like what they did with Gareth Bale and Chiellini, because it seemed like they had a way of doing things. They brought in the young South Americans, almost like how Atlanta United did. They brought in like a veteran player or two in Carlos Vela, and they were going to pretty much fill the roster up with random players. And it's been doing well for them. The problem was that when it come playoff time, it was not doing good things for them. So then, and then they got up to a nice start. They have really, really well. And then for some reason they said, you know what? We got such a good start to the season. We're going to bring in Gareth Bale and Giorgio Chiellini. And I think it's messed up the chemistry a little bit. I think, playoffs are a little bit different. When it comes to Gareth Bale and to Chiellini. So it seems like LAFC is pretty much falling backwards into the playoffs. And the only reason they're probably gonna top the West is because they had such a head start to begin with. But this season was another 3 weeks, then it could have easily been Austin FC or FC Dallas taking the top spot in the West.
And I kind of feel for LAFC. I get, because playoffs are so much about momentum. When you get in there, we assume right now that they'll get the bye, but just because they've had such a massive lead throughout most of the season. But we've seen teams that win and they just kind of back in, and it's all downhill, and the momentum is not with them. In fact, I would argue the momentum in the Western Conference is probably with a little bit with FC Dallas. Of course, Austin FC has had an MVP type performance from their main striker. They're also a really solid team. Which one of those two do you think is more likely to challenge LAFC? Or the team that I didn't even mention in the Western Conference?
I think it's FC Dallas. I think, this is the year that it seems like all the pieces are together. They got their academy kids, obviously. Jesus Ferreira just on another level. He's gonna be on the plane to Qatar. He's been amazing. He's almost a starting number 9 when it comes to the USA. But he's done so well. And they have all their pieces working together. Their DPs are working well. Their academy kids are working well. The MLS journeymen are working well together. They are stacked. They're ready to go. This could be their year to make the finals. I mean, for a long time, the FC Dallas way has simply been about bringing the academy kids, going to sell you off later, turn in money, and have a decent performance. This time, they have an excellent chance to show the league and their fans that this system could potentially win them a title. So I honestly think that right now, if it was, LAFC versus FC Dallas in the Western Conference Finals, I'm picking FC Dallas. That's how I think the momentum's strong there. They both played well together. They have a system that they're all used to. There's familiarity there as well. So they are my pick to come out of the West.
Somehow Montreal just keeps being able to find a way to get results. I'm still 30 games into the season at a loss to figure out what it is that Montreal does really, really well. They have a worse goal difference than either of the New York teams. They've allowed 47 goals, which is, among the worst totals in the Eastern Conference. They have managed to score 55. It just seems like they find a way to get results in close games. How legitimate a threat are Montreal in the Eastern Conference?
I don't think they're much at all, only because of all the stats you said. It seems like they're winning, despite of their stats, and the numbers never lie. This is a little bit of an anomaly. This should be further down the table. And I mean, but they've been doing pretty decently. Their last loss was against the Red Bulls at home. So the Red Bulls could definitely can take them to compete them, at home if they have to. But it's going to catch up to them. Montreal, Club de Foot Montreal, the Impact, whoever you are, midnight is coming, the bells and the toll, and then it's going to be back down, back to vacation for you, because you're not. I think they're not going to do well. I think they'll be out. The first chance they're in the playoffs. I really do. I don't foresee them advancing far at all. They just, they win, but they don't win pretty. They give up a lot of goals, and then, when you can't, I hate to say it, it's very cliche, but like defense wins titles, and they don't have defense at all whatsoever.
So New York, shocker. You lose your coach, you lose your best player, and you can't score goals, and you start losing. It is no wins in 5 now for NYCFC. The Campeones Cup final coming up Wednesday, before they have a 3-game stretch that is going to determine their playoff fate. They're still in a pretty good position to make the playoffs. New England is 8 points back with 4 games left to play, right? So, but there's a lot of teams in between NYCFC and missing the playoffs. I don't think they are going to miss the playoffs per se. That said, the road doesn't get easy. There's the city derby with Red Bulls. They have 5th place Orlando City before they travel down to Atlanta United, who are making their own push, albeit one I think is a little too late to make the playoffs. These are 3 teams that they're going against that are playing pretty decently right now, and they are not looking real good at this point for the defending MLS Cup champions.
No, they're the momentum's not there with them. But big wins in derbies and especially if they win in the Hudson River Derby, they're at home. Which home is it? By the way, I have no idea. Do they have a home?
I guess it'll be Yankee Stadium. I mean, it could be the Hudson River Derby. They could be the home team playing in Red Bull.
Yeah, that'd be just, oh God, can you imagine? No, I'll find out very shortly. But if they win,
it's at Yankee Stadium.
There it is. Okay, if they win, and I hope they don't because they're an awful franchise. But if they win, it definitely can turn the momentum around. It does things. When you win big matches, the momentum you get the momentum, the fans get hyped, the players get excited. And also they get a little bit closer to the Red Bulls, which helps. So that's a big game for them. They have to win it. Just for this, not even because it's the Red Bulls, because simply they need some positive news. Because what you don't want is you dropping more points and the Crew coming for you, and Cincinnati coming for you, and then you might have to play potentially an extra playoff game. You don't want that. It's not good. And then and it's a one-off too. It's not even a two-legged at that point. They have to do something. They just been shockingly bad. I mean,
But that's what happens when you give up your best player and your manager.
Yeah, I know, I know, and and it's weird. If you're an NYCFC fan, it's a part of MLS is learning to give up your best player when they become good enough and when you win titles. It just happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
But limited managers, and then you're supposed to have plans in place to replace them, and it seems like they don't. They didn't. I don't know what's going on over there in the front office, but they have nothing to show for it. It's been bad. But like I said, when it comes to derbies, and it's you can have 5, 6, 7 losses in a row, but then the derby will get you the win, and then it's a momentum shifter into the playoffs. So, and you got to be hot for the playoffs, obviously. And then you got the Red Bulls who are just I don't know what to make of them. It's almost like they want to play on the road. They had the best road record. They don't like playing at home. They won barely against New England.
Well, that was the point that I was going to make. Like, shockingly, the Red Bulls got a rare home win. Normally in MLS, especially, the point differential between what you do at home and what you do on the road is quite different. We'll see teams with really solid home records who struggle on the road. You are almost content to average to be about a point a game on the road. If you can be about a point a game in MLS on the road, then most MLS teams will take that. For some strange reason, you're right. Red Bulls just have been a much better team on the road, to the point where you almost feel like they need to stay in a different hotel the night before games at home.
Yeah, we have volunteered as Red Bull supporters to put on the shirt of the opposing team in the South Ward to help them out. If that's what needs to happen, we'll do it. We're not going to put on NYCFC stuff, but if you want me to put on an FC Cincinnati shirt, I'll do it. Let's go. I will pretend you're on the road if I have to get this win. The Red Bulls have been the one thing that they've done really well. Well, it's two things, by the way, besides fouling everybody. They have good tackling, amazing tackling, number one in the league, and they win the ball in the final third more often. No, they win the ball more times in the final third than the other team, which has helped them. That is that pressing style, that's really got them easy goals. And Lewis Morgan has been a godsend. So Celtic Cam, thank you for Lewis Morgan. He's been an amazing player. Scored a penalty this past week, and he's just been lighting up. I think he's the Red Bulls leading scorer as well. But especially in the road too. But yeah, it's like the Red Bulls do so well on the road. They don't even they take it personally that they're not at home. They're like they up their game for some reason. And I don't know, maybe it says something about us fans that we can't will them to win at home. I have no idea, but man, they're gonna be a fun to watch. They might be a heartbreaking to watch, but they're gonna be fun to watch anyways.
So, as far as teams and contenders in the Eastern Conference go, that leaves us with the MLS Supporters Shield leading currently Philadelphia Union, who had yet another multi-goal home win over the weekend, beating Orlando City 5-0. They are now, that combined with the LAFC loss to FC Dallas puts Philadelphia Union in the driver's seat. They control their own destiny as far as the supporter shield goes. They're away to Atlanta United this weekend. We know that Atlanta is a tricky place to play. You're playing on that field turf. The stadium's a little bit different, and they are making their own resurgence. I will argue probably a little bit too late, but they're playing much better. But they've been off all season. They have a week break of MLS action before they're back on October. They have a couple of weeks off before they're back 2 weeks later with at Charlotte before they wrap up the season with Toronto. Based on the standings and the way that the Philadelphia Union are currently playing, those are all games where they will be favored. It's hard to argue that they are the best team, that they're not the best team in MLS right now. They are defending well and they're scoring goals at a amazing rate to the point where they look likely to set the MLS record for goal differential over the course of a season.
Yeah, they've been fantastic. Jim Curtin, once again, masterful job over there. They're bringing in the right DPs, Bedoya has been one of the DPs that he gets paid a lot of money, but he plays a role. You don't expect him to do a lot of things. They just hit it right. Wagner's been amazing as well. This is going to be a tough game against Atlanta because Atlanta is fighting for their playoff lives. This is it for them. They need to win at home. If they don't win, it's over for them. They're done. That's it. Then at that point, Charlotte will be out most likely, and then it'll be Toronto. Next at home, and then they're awful. So this is a Union supporter shield. You pretty much after this Atlanta game, they win. Just give them the shield. It's done. Crown them already, as Dennis Green says. They're that good. They are the best team, most organized team. They have all the pieces that that place is not fun to play at either. In Subaru Park, they're the best team. There's no if ands about it. They are the best team, and excellent shot to win the MLS Cup.
My question though becomes, if they do win the supporter shield and they get the right to host MLS Cup, it will be by far the smallest stadium to host MLS Cup. I don't know. I feel like the MLS may have something to say about that. We'll let you get home field advantage throughout the Eastern Conference, but what's not going to happen is you're going to get to host the MLS Cup.
Can you put it at Lincoln Financial Field?
My guess is that if scheduling allows for it, you probably could. I see no reason why, if they can't work it out on the right day with the Eagles, depending on the final day, time, things like that, they could. But I also feel like if you're the Philadelphia Union, you've been playing at at Subaru Park the whole entire season. Why would you want to go and play your final game in a different stadium that's going to have a different configuration? I know what they want to do is if they get to that point, and they haven't yet, and it's been one of the more snake-breaking franchises when it comes to making it to finals and winning trophies. They want to win a trophy in front of fans and run over to the river end and share it with them. So I can't imagine that they would give that up.
Yeah, no, I don't think it will happen. But just for the sake of conversation, the Eagles have a home game on the 14th. MLS Cup will probably be on the 13th. If I'm guessing, or the 12th, but the Eagles are playing on Monday night. So the link should be fine in theory. But you're right. No, I think Subaru Park will host it. The Sons of Ben will go crazy. And whoever is, probably, potentially LAFC, maybe Austin FC fans will be right next to them, causing trouble.
All right, man. Thanks a lot for that. It is time now for it is time now for us to wrap this up. We had a really great show, even if there was no EPL to talk about instead. We got to chat a little bit of Serie A with Coach G, a little bit of La Liga. I finally got it right, about an hour and a half too late, with Los and El Gato. We did some Scotland with Celtic Cam, and we wrapped the whole thing up by time with the Bundesliga and MLS with Byron Robb. So great insight. So I want to, and of course, thank you, producer Steph, for keeping trains running on time. So for the cast of the Too Many Guys Soccer Show, I'm Mike. We did all right this week, and we'll try and do better next week.